Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Happy Thursday or Friday, depending on what day it is for you. For me, it is Thursday evening in Miami, Florida, and I'm so excited to be with you all on the rundown. This week, we're going to start with a couple of news stories, one of which I have just been obsessed with for the past 2 days. Very dangerous stuff. Then we're going to therapy, and then we're going to talk about AI and copyright. And how do we protect creators? How do we make sure that the creative spirit that has allowed humanity to thrive for millennia isn't squashed by the amazing technologies that AI is producing? That with some of my best friends in the world tonight on The Rundown. Everybody, welcome. It's good to see you, and it's good to see Tamra. How you doing, Tamra?
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are things going out there on the West Coast?
It has been flipping back and forth. The weather was 80 degrees, and now it's been 60 degrees. So I'm excited.
Poor thing. 80 degrees and 60 degrees. It just sounds awful.
I wasn't ready for 80 degrees. If we're being honest.
Early.
I like the promise of Southern California being 70 to 75 degrees. So it's a little cold now. It was a little warm last
There you go. Good to see you here. And someone that I haven't seen for 24 hours, I think. Tony Mobley, how are you?
I'm great, David. How are you, sir?
Good. I so enjoyed our conversation last night.
I did too. And based on the way the conversation ended, we are not done.
Yeah,
we're gonna continue it.
We're not done. And you know who else I'm not done with? I'm not done with Lois because it's been 2 hours since I saw you last.
Something like that. Yeah.
I really had
Damon was on my radio show,
and so much fun, Lois. So much fun talking with you.
But we didn't finish.
No, we didn't. That's the story. It's the story of our lives, though. We're never done. Nothing is ever done. But that's beautiful. There are a few things that are not only not done, they're not even new. There's not even time for them to be new because they're always changing. There is so much going on in the AI world, in the technology world, in the news world. We've got to get into some of the news. So I think probably the best way to talk about this first story is just to show you. All right. Now, I'm hoping that this is all set up for me to show you this. Let's see. Okay. Oh, it's not really set up. Let me see if I can fix that. What is going on here? Sorry. I'm not sure why that's so interesting. I'm not sure why it's so small like that. In any case, this week, I'm going to fix this on the fly while I'm talking. This week, first Google with Gemini announced their new image generation, and then OpenAI came right after them. And oh, there we go. That's what the problem was. I apologize. So I have been playing with this all day. No, for 2 days, literally for 2 days. And I want to show you this, and I want to point out a couple of important things. So I started by, this is, by the way, it was supposed to be available to free users. I believe they pulled that back because the demand was so high. All right, so let's take a look at this. So I started by putting in this picture of me, and I said, turn this into a Disney Pixar style illustration, and this is what I got. And a couple of things I want to point out. So first of all, I just find the quality to be outstanding in this image. Take a look at the text down here. The text is correct. This is one of the big leaps forward that they talked about, is that now they're doing a much better job with text in images. So then I put in a picture of my 3 daughters. So here's my 3 girls. And I said, turn them into Disney princesses. And check, this is insane. Look at this. Look at that image. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's just a beautiful image. This is now my screensaver on my phone. Now, later on, my eldest daughter, who's over here on the right, said, wait a second, I have blue eyes. So later on, I went back and I said, ooh, the girl on the right needs blue eyes, and it did it perfectly. It kept everything else in the image correct. It did it perfectly. So that's another piece of the puzzle. So then I took a picture of my dog. This is Sadie here. And I said, turn Sadie into a Disney character. And I got this, which is just, I mean, that's just adorable. Okay, so at first I was just having fun, just playing with, trying to give it images. So the magic sauce here is it's using both an image that I'm giving it and a text prompt, and it's able to create. So now so then I did stuff like I gave it an old wedding photo of ours, and I said, create this in the style of anime, and it did that, which is pretty darn good, I think, for anime. But let me scroll down, because what I want to show you is it does get some things wrong. So for example, I gave it a picture of someone and I said, turn this picture of this person into a picture of Miriam from the Bible escaping from Egypt playing her timbrel. Make it photorealistic. It did a really good job, except there's one big mistake. She has just one too many arms.
She is a miracle. Of course she is.
It's a miracle. Exactly. Yeah. Either that or it's one of the plagues of Egypt. But so far, this is the only mistake I found. Let's see. What else can I show you? Okay. So then my wife told me that my nose was too big on the original picture. So I uploaded it again. I said, make my nose smaller. It didn't really, it made my head rounder. It didn't make my nose smaller. But if you take a look at the back here, those of you who see me in my office know that I have a neon sign that says a big R and then Rock and Roll Rabbi. So then I said, you know what, we need to get this right. So please change that to an R, which it did beautifully. Then I asked it to, and again, it still got the text good on my shirt. And then I said, wait a second, I need you to, I want to change the text on the shirt. That didn't go quite as well. That it kind of messed up that a little bit. And then I have found, by the way, these, it has timed out quite a few times on me. I'm not complaining, but it has timed out quite a few times on me. So then, by the way, this created an image with just me. And I said, do me a favor, make it standing. The original image, I was not standing. There's no bottom to me. So then it made me standing. And then I said, you know what? I want my entire office. And so then it recreated the back of my office, which is actually not bad at all. And then I said, oh, wait, there's also a guitar there. So it put a guitar, an acoustic guitar in the corner. And then I've been playing with the head and the nose and the ears because it's been bothering me. But I mean, this is just...
But it doesn't look like you.
It doesn't look like me. But
the mouth is way too big.
Right. But this is... so here's the latest attempt, by the way. So I said, do me a favor, make the head and the body more proportional. So that's what I got. And then I gave it another picture of me and I said, hey, can we try and do that one? And I came up with this, which is more photorealistic, but it doesn't look like me. But I want to show you something else. Earlier today, actually, as I was driving home, I pulled up ChatGPT and I started talking to it. And I said, based on what you know about this project that I'm working on, create an infographic. And this is what it created. And I have to say, this is really pretty good. And I'm thinking about all the tools that are out there that people use to create social posts and infographics and all this stuff. And you can now just say to ChatGPT, do this. Now, there are some mistakes in here, right? There's a spelling mistake down here. There's another one down here. And unlike something in Canva, you can't now export this and play with the text. But this is a huge leap forward, I think, if you ask me.
But you had to give it all the information about your project, didn't you?
Well, so what's interesting, that's actually a great question, Lois. No, I didn't. All I said was, let me see. I said, create an infographic about the learning journey at Sinai Learning Lab. So that's the school that I'm talking about. Now, so I didn't give it anything else than that. Having said that, I have used ChatGPT for months to create the Sinai Learning Lab and to create text around it. So it's using its memory. I did then try a second time because I wasn't entirely thrilled with what it gave me. And I said, please go look at this website and use that information. And it did okay. My experience is that it's not great looking at websites. If you upload actual data, like a PDF or actual text, it's really good at that. But I wanted to bring this up because to me, this is another inflection point. This is another moment. And OpenAI isn't the only one. Like I said, Gemini is doing Google's Gemini is doing this also. But we are seeing before our eyes how work and creativity is changing. It's just changing right before our eyes. And I don't know why I would ever go and look for what's it called?
Mid-Journey?
No. Well,
No,
no.
just any kind of graphics.
Yeah, like why would I go look for clip art anymore? Why would I pay? And we're going to have to talk about this later on in the show when we get to copyright, but why would I pay for anyone to create low level, at least, artwork for me?
I had that conversation this week with someone because I had to create a poster for a show that's being produced in a teeny tiny theater that is like disposable art, and I did it on Canva and used graphics and adjusted them, and people were like, well, but then you're not paying someone. I said, you don't understand. I have a $0 budget. I'm not paying anyone anyways.
Right.
Like, it's going to be words or it's going to be clip art. So it is hard. I think it does make it so that it's something that we really do have this ability for everyone. And that doesn't mean that I wouldn't pay for art. I have paid for art in the past. And obviously if I was doing an off-Broadway show, it'd be a totally different thing. But for this particular developmental piece, I need to have something that works, but I also just don't need to pay the same cost of going back and forth with an artist.
Right.
But you did it yourself. You were the artist. You didn't just
but listen, I'm tech adjacent. I'm like I always say, I'm the techiest layperson that I know, because yes, I can figure that out. But I have the blessing of working in animation where I get to know what a real artist does and like what that process is, and it is unbelievable. It is amazing. You do get what you pay for. I know artists
and again,
who can do anything.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about all this later. I do want to just say Gary is watching in YouTube along with Guy Cochran. Hello to both of you. And Gary says melting some GPUs, and I just wanted to say that I have no idea what my usage of this is costing or causing. I will say that watch. So it takes OpenAI longer to generate these images.
Much
You
longer.
feel like it's working harder. You feel like you're melting some GPU. You do, or at least I did. And so again, I don't know what this is costing or causing, but it feels like it is costing and causing perhaps more than just the simple text that we were using before. And Guy is saying, funny how we talk to ChatGPT, do me a favor or thank you. Yeah, I have a difficult time talking to ChatGPT without being polite. And
We're
yet,
tight, ChatGPT and
what do
I.
you say?
We're tight, ChatGPT and I. But as my friend says, ChatGPT is like your best advocate. They're like your best friend. You go
Right.
in and you're like, hey, I'm having a bad day. Tell me this. And it's like, let me tell you how great you are.
Except I did
So
learn, and I don't remember where I learned this, that anything that you add to your prompt, ChatGPT is going to think about that and use that in
Mhm.
its response. So if you add words like please or thank you,
Right.
that becomes part of the prompt as opposed to giving a very clear and specific prompt. So I found that interesting.
It goes even a step further because my friend Jen has trained her ChatGPT to be casual and cool. And the answers she gets back are so personable, best friend
Yeah.
next door. And mine are still kind of, bit more business, more
Yeah.
business like, but
so
polite.
So it sounds like ChatGPT, which came bursting on the scene
Yeah.
because you could get text from it, is trying to replace Midjourney, which was not text, it was just images. And so, though it's cool what you're doing and making those what do you call those avatars?
I guess
And then
so.
once
Yeah.
you get one of those, you can dump them into Zoom and watch them speak when you say things and stuff like that. That's all real cool. But
Right. But then you get into make me an infographic or create a
mhm,
social post or make a meme. And all of a
mm,
sudden, you're creating things that you may otherwise have used another tool, certainly, or you
right.
may have hired someone to do. And again, we'll have to talk about that
Mhm,
later. But when this came out, first of all, it really is addictive. So if you have the plus version, or when it comes out, the free version of, definitely play with this and play around with the prompts. It's just fascinating. But I did also have the sense that this is not the beginning. We are watching the world change with this
mhm.
technology. Is kind of all I want to say. Speaking of
David, I
change,
wanted
oh,
to,
I'm sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Were you using a Disney prompt like Disney?
Yeah, I
Pixar.
said in the form of Disney Pixar. Yeah.
And that worked because at one time there was an issue if you use something that was copyrighted that it would not do it.
So
An
that's
example I have is like, yeah, go ahead. I'm
Yeah, so
sorry.
that's going to be part of the story. In fact, this news story just came out before we went live. It's related to the copyright issue question, but there's a difference between, as I understand it, as the article explained, which I'll share later. There's a difference between specific artists. So if I were to say, create something in the style of a specific artist versus a style of art. And for whatever reason, agree or disagree, Disney Pixar is considered a style rather than a
Mm.
specific artist.
Like watercolor or
Maybe,
anime.
maybe,
Mhm.
yeah.
But the the one that preceded Midjourney, which was free, and they had all these artist styles that you could choose. So you could choose in the style of Van Gogh
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
whoever. And I don't think they have those anymore.
So let me just see here. Create an image. So I'm gonna try a specific one. Create an image. Oh, I have it. Sorry, because I'm also watching our stream. That keeps happening. Create an image of a happy family sitting by the pool in the style of Van. How do you spell go?
Goff.
Thank you. GOHF? Is that correct?
No,
FF?
HT, isn't it? Camera.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know. How do you spell Van Gogh?
Van Gogh.
Ask ChatGPT. How do you spell
VOG. I think it's VOGT.
GOGH. GOGH. All right, so
It
let's
isn't
let that work.
GOGH. I just looked it up.
Okay, so that's going to take a minute. We can come back to that.
It'll take hours.
And we'll see what it does. Okay, but speaking of change, this next story is a little wild. So Section 230 is a very tiny little piece of a law that was passed regarding speech, and specifically speech across the internet. And here I can actually read it for you. So 230 says, hold on, the error. Where is the extra? No provider. Here we go. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. And then it continues, no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be held liable on account of, and then it goes on. Basically what this is saying is that Facebook, Truth Social, LinkedIn, X, none of them are responsible for the content that its users put on those platforms. Mm-hmm. Now, for the big guys, it may not seem like we may feel like they should be more responsible. We may feel like that maybe they should do a little more censoring. But then you think about the small guys who are just running a Mastodon server or their own private chat. What happens if someone says something offensive on their platform and then they get sued as the host of that platform, as the host of that chat platform? So 230 really has allowed for social media and chat pages and chat on YouTube and chat on blogs and all. It has allowed all of those things to exist. And once again, we are seeing now indications that senators want to repeal this, pull this back. And interestingly enough, it's a bipartisan effort to
when you pull it back, you're saying make the providers publishers.
So as early as next week, this is from the Information Paris Martineau. As early as next week, senators plan to introduce the first bipartisan bill to repeal Section 230, the landmark internet law. So here we go. Dick Durbin, a Democrat, and Senator Lindsey Graham, finally they can work together, but unfortunately on this, plan to introduce a bill that would set an expiration date of January 1st, 2027 for Section 230. The senators have wide-ranging support from their respective parties. Josh Hawley, Marsha Blackburn, Sheldon Whitehouse, Amy Klobuchar have agreed to co-sponsor the bill. Richard Blumenthal and Peter Welch have also discussed joining as co-sponsors. So, I don't know if this is a case of these folks not really understanding how the internet works and how much damage this could potentially do. Do you have a sense that this kind of protection is important? Am I crazy to be worried about this?
I'm not even sure what the protection is. It's still confusing because the reason the law got written is that we were in a situation where if I'm an author and I write a book and it gets published by a publisher, all those people have control over and therefore responsibility for what's gotten said. Whereas the argument was, so if I'm just putting up a bulletin board on the outside of my store, and anybody can walk by and stick something up there. Am I, the bulletin board owner, responsible for what those people have published? I don't think so. And I think that's where
Well, but that's exactly what
that's
230
what
says.
the reason
Right.
that it was made. Now, if you rescind that, it still hasn't answered the question, because the question at the time was, who's responsible? And there wasn't a clear answer before this was written. It was
So-
in discussion.
Right. So I think what would end up happening is, if I understand it correctly, and I'm by no means do I understand the law any better than anyone else. In fact, I definitely don't. Is that we now today with Section 230 we have clarity. The clarity that we have is that the platform is not a publisher.
That's right.
They are simply putting up the bulletin board outside of their store. The problem is that with the repeal of 230, we wouldn't have clarity. And so, whereas we don't know necessarily who is responsible, what it does is it opens up for everybody to sue.
And it also means that if without that specified thing, we also don't know whether or not the platforms have now evolved to such a point that even though they aren't writing the original words, they are selecting which words are being distributed. So they are reducing some and promoting some, and they've got all these formulas. So maybe they are now publishers.
So the curation of it, what you're saying is the curation of it with the algorithm makes them a publisher?
No, I'm saying that is the question that is now more relevant, because things have changed from when this law was passed.
The only thing about that is that it's not, my understanding is that Facebook isn't promoting one post to everyone. The algorithm gives you a unique feed based on your interest. And that doesn't mean that they don't have their thumb on the scale. They do. But the thumb on the scale for me is probably different than the thumb on the scale for you.
Right.
So I'm not.
Well, you don't know that, though.
I don't. No, you're right.
You don't know
I don't
there.
know that.
If I make a post and no one sees it because they've decided they don't want anyone to see my post, that may be a paranoid sounding thing to say, but how do you know it's not true? And maybe it's true. It's not true on Facebook. Maybe on YouTube it is. Maybe on X it is. You don't know. How do you know?
And it could be that Section 230 even protects the platforms from those sorts of accusations, because the platforms can say, we're not publishing. We're not, we're not pushing content one way or the other. I think it's dangerous to get rid of this protection. That's just me.
Well, and I mean, the truth of the matter is trying to put the genie back in the bottle that is out. The internet is how
point.
It is now.
You're right.
And so how do you do that? If you look at what happened with TikTok, people who didn't understand how TikTok worked made decisions over people's lives, and the people said, that's fine. We'll go directly to China. Like, we'll do all these other things that may or may not. So like sometimes I think the ideas sound good on paper, but they're being pushed through by people who don't understand what it is that they're pushing through.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, it's not illegal to tell a lie. That's the part. Like, we moralistically want people to act a certain way, but freedom of speech is also allows us to speak nonsense.
Freedom of speech is all about the stuff that you don't want to hear.
Right.
That's why we have it. Yeah.
So if I thought it was altruistic, I'd be like, okay, I want to know more. Instead, I think it's exhausting.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And then my question always is, follow the money. Who's going to benefit from this? Well, people are going to sue lots of people.
Right.
And if you've got big enough pockets, maybe you can suppress some of the little guys.
The average person is not going to know, like, okay, you flip it all off, what happens? Like, it's just, I don't know how it's enforceable.
I think the little guys any small platforms that host comments will shut down. They'll just shut down because they can't take the risk of being sued. It's only the
And I think a majority of the users of the internet won't even know that it happened.
Yeah,
That's
probably
right.
true.
I don't think they are hooked in like we are nerdy hooked into all these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But there are millions of people who participate in private Mastodon servers and private this and private IRC chats and all that stuff. And those, Discord even. I mean, the four of us, we're all on Discord. Discord would now be responsible for what people post. Or even worse, I have a Discord server for us.
Right. I don't
if one of you posts something offensive, right? If you post something offensive and Lois gets angry about it, Lois could sue me as the host of of that Discord server. Well, guess what?
all they would have to do
I'm
is
shutting
change
down all
their
my
terms of
servers.
service. They would just change their terms of service to say, if you agree to this, you are agreeing to take full responsibility and be solely responsible for what you say
But then
on
my
the
point
internet.
is, then we all would shut down. None of us would use the service. I'm not
No,
going to take
she's saying-
responsibility.
I'm
could
saying
say
you have
you
never
could do-
read a terms of service. 9 out of 10 terms of services you don't ever even pay attention to. So
And
it
you
would
could
become
put
a
230.
line. Right. It would become a line in the terms of service that says if you use this service, you take 100% responsibility for what you do on this service. Then when this lawsuit happened, they said, let me point you to David.
Oh,
he
the
signed a terms of
individual,
service
not the
that
owner.
said,
of the
individual. Yeah.
This isn't gonna. This is gonna only affect individuals.
Yeah.
It's not
I
gonna
don't know.
affect a big
I wonder
company
if that
because
would hold
that's a
up.
huge loophole.
Right. I don't know. I asked Lois
How are you
about.
doing, David?
I
How
don't
you
know.
doing
I
this week?
asked you about this earlier, and you weren't very helpful. Can we try again?
Help?
Help is what I need because I can't stop. I live in a browser, I live in email, and I live in my calendar. And I don't know if there's a perfect calendar app out there or if there's a perfect email client out there, but I'll be damned if there is. I'm going to be the one to find it because I keep trying new ones. My newest thing is I'm on the lookout for a new browser because I'm using Arc browser, and it's been quirky a little bit. Now, I haven't loved it as much, and I feel like I'm just constantly chasing the new great tool. And 9 times out of 10, the answer ends up being, David, simplify. Like, stop working so hard. Just your email is hosted through Gmail. Just use Gmail. But.
So, David, you come with all these tech problems that really aren't tech problems.
They're people,
So,
but they're psychological issues, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
I wouldn't quite put it that way, but okay, if that's how you want to describe it. So you can simplify your life. And you know that I was the organizer from 1980 on till I retired. And you can simplify your life by finding something that it has got a system that you like. So if you're using Windows, you can go to Microsoft, you can get all of the different stuff from Microsoft. If you're using Mac, you use the Mac tools and you do that. Now there are Zoom tools when doing lots of different things. And if you find one that works, stop looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ain't gonna happen, is it?
It's not that. It's not that. It's
David, could it be?
Go ahead.
Could it be a superpower?
Yes.
In some ways, yeah. Thank you, Tony. See, this is I need a therapist who affirms me. You know, Tony gets me. You're right. It is sort of a superpower. It's just a bit of an obsessive compulsive superpower. I mean, the latest example, by the way, is I don't even remember when Notion, the app, first announced that they were doing Notion email. I signed up immediately. I have since forgotten completely about it. Well, guess what I got on Monday? I got my invite to try Notion Mail. So I immediately went in. I immediately attached all my Gmail accounts to it. I haven't looked at it since then, but and now, by the way, I'm getting mail in 12 different places because now I'm not only getting it in my main client, I'm getting it in here in Notion, and but I do again. The reason that I do this is because I don't know how to code. I don't know how to create these tools. Maybe that's the answer, actually, David. Make your own perfect app. And I'm not making excuses. I could, if I put my mind to it, I could learn how to do that. Anyone can. But for lack of doing that, I really am always on the lookout for what's the best solution to make me the most efficient, the most effective. I don't want to spend every day, all day in my technology. I want to have the right tools to get the job done efficiently and effectively. And so I'm just kind of always looking for that.
See, I push back on that,
All right,
David,
go ahead.
because I think you do like your technology. That's
Oh, no, I
why
do.
you're always looking for
Absolutely.
yeah. So I don't think you're going to find the best thing. I mean, I say this like I can't give you great advice on this. I've got 3 computers up right now running with 50 tabs each. So I'm not the person to tell you. But like every time I think that I'm going to do that, I'm like, no, I'm not. If there's something new, I'm going to go play around with it
Right.
and maybe it'll stick. So, I think that you do. I think that the fact that you like your technology is also part of the driving force of discovering new things, because that may be the cool new thing.
Yeah.
I think too that you might need to look at it as a way to keep your mind active.
Mm.
I know that for me, all of this stuff, it's a lot. It really is a lot. But I think it keeps me pretty sharp in terms of, trying this out, trying that out, seeing what works for me, what doesn't work for me. Um, my family members would say that I'm obsessed with learning new technologies. And that's okay for me from the standpoint that I think I really can't get away with saying it keeps me young, but I think in a sense it does because I am constantly looking at how I can improve what I have to do, what I'm trying to do. And in some sense, I'm making a lot of headway. And in another sense, I'm taking steps backwards. So, I think it's all part of the journey. And,
Yeah, Tony.
I consider myself a lifelong learner.
Yeah. Last
And
night
and
when
that's
when you and I were
part of it.
talking, you and I were talking last night, and one of the things that you brought out is that keep your eye on the goal. Okay, keep your eye on where are you going? Use this stuff. Use all these tools to do something good, right? To make a difference in the world. And I might be kidding myself, but I genuinely I don't know if that's why I do it, but I want that to be there. I want to use the latest tools, to use the right tech so that I can do. For me, there's a little bit of just, I love the stuff, but a lot of it is, really wanting to do the best work that I can. I think about every time Zoom comes out with like, I'm the first to update everything. It's, that rule about like, don't do productions and real stuff on beta.
Yeah.
I do
You
it on
fly in the
alphas.
face of that.
I do it on alphas. Yeah.
David, there's a thought here that you can use this tool as a tool, or you can use it as a toy.
Yeah.
And if you're getting frustrated because there's so many new things and you're not able to handle email because you've got 5 different places where the emails, well, why would you want that? And do you want that? So I've been, well, I was on the internet before the internet had the World Wide Web. So that's how long I've been there. And I have had dozens, literally dozens of email addresses. And then I recently, a few years ago, found out, hey, On Gmail, you can have lots of email addresses. And so for different tasks, I have different Gmail accounts. birdingwithlois@gmail.com, kdrt.thatslife@gmail.com, one for my show, one for this other show, one for, all these different things. I like that because then I can separate out what I'm doing and use the appropriate email for that task.
So here's
My
an
genealogy
example.
has a separate one.
So
Pardon?
okay, so I'm glad you raised that. By the way, we can end this soon. We don't need to solve this problem. But so I, like you, I have multiple email addresses, multiple Gmail accounts or Google accounts. Some of my favorite email clients don't have a unified inbox, meaning that for me, in my workflow, I don't want to have to click between mailboxes. I want all my mail in one place and just label it. And so, Gmail doesn't have a unified inbox.
But
What?
almost all email clients you're on a Mac, open up Mail and click that little arrow so it points it in instead of down, and there's all of them together.
And I've thought about using Mail, Apple Mail. I really have. But you know what it doesn't have? It doesn't have all the stuff that Gmail has.
That's true. In Gmail, you have separate accounts and you have the ability to have different directories for different accounts and all
I
that
also
stuff.
love the tabs.
I can have custom signatures. I can have, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know.
I can do that in Mail.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't, whatever you use, pick it and use it.
Until
And
the next thing comes out.
Stop trying to make, just because it's new, you don't have to use it. Use the thing that makes you functional.
Ryan,
I love what you said, Lois, about things are tools and things are toys.
Yeah.
You can have as many toys as you want and call them toys until they become in your workflow, and then they become tools. It's okay to have toys.
Ryan Clark in YouTube says, the other day I told a friend the same thing. We have people who simply do good using Google and sending emails, yet they are the ones creating laws about technology that they don't use or understand. So this is a little bit of connecting this story with the one that came before, right? And this is Tony, this is the superpower piece, right? I use all of these tools and I want to use the new one so that I can have informed opinions and make informed, thoughtful decisions about technology and how to use this. So there you go.
It doesn't sound like you need therapy.
Yeah. Nah.
All solved.
Thanks. And by the way, Ryan Clark is asking if we're using Uno graphics, and yes, we are. This thing that kind of pops up and down, that is Uno overlays.uno graphics. So thank you for mentioning that. Sorry, Tony, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, I think that there's nothing wrong with having a superpower and using your superpower. That's what heroes do.
Just have to use
That's what heroes do.
Thanks, guys.
Help.
So let's jump into copyright and generative AI. So this actually started with a video that I was watching. It was I guess a TED Talk, how AI models steal creative work and what to do about it. I thought it was a really interesting TED Talk. And then I did some research into the actual US Copyright Office. And then just before we went live, a story from TechCrunch came across my inbox. And I'll just share a little bit of it with you so that to set the scene. They write, it's only been, oh goodness, I have to get rid of this again. I'm so sorry about that. It's only been a day since ChatGPT's new AI image generator went live, and social media feeds are already flooded with AI-generated memes in the style of Studio Ghibli. Forgive me for not knowing that. A cult favorite Japanese animation studio behind blockbuster films such as My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away. In the last 24 hours, we've seen AI-generated images representing Studio Ghibli versions of Elon Musk, Lord of the Rings, President Trump. Sam Altman made his new profile picture of a Studio Ghibli-style image. And the question is, are they stealing? Are they stealing? OpenAI and Google's latest tools make it easier than ever to recreate the styles of copyrighted works simply by typing a text prompt. But the real concern lies in how these AI tools are trained to imitate styles. Are these companies training on copyrighted works? And if so, does that violate copyright law? And this is coming up now because there are a number of lawsuits that have been brought about this. So how can it create all these images that are in the style of Ghibli? Because it trained its model on millions of frames from Ghibli's films. That's the question. What are your takes?
We're also seeing it in The Atlantic just had an article on the 20th that is going through all of my scholar feeds, people who are from universities, because it points out that Meta used a database that included all of these novels. Just about, you can basically put any novelist in, and then any articles, and people are, on my feed are all like, they have literally trained these models on everything I've ever written. So I think that it is definitely something that we do have to talk about. It's something that, I brought up on our document, that this is kind of how copyright does things. I go back into some of my research on Secret Garden. The book came out in 1911, and the first or the Paramount silent film came out in 1918. So Paramount owned that copyright, and when they went to go make their live action film in the 30s, which they never ended up making, they had to go back and renegotiate talking rights because they did not have the rights. But that law came into being because many people said, hey, I got the rights to the silent film, therefore I'm going to do that. So I think, and we saw it again later when we were talking about Web 1.0, where people were putting up copyrighted content and organizations were doing it that people weren't being paid for. And then they had to go back, and those lawsuits came about. And I think we're going to see the same thing, but this is so very different because it is creating content that is in direct competition. It's not like it's taking potential money out of someone's pocket by reposting an article. It is literally creating the tools that become competition for artists and writers.
Do you remember the oh, goodness gracious, I just blanked on his name, and I was just watching a video of him. The artist, he's an acoustic guitarist, Ed Sheeran. Mm-hmm. Ed Sheeran was involved in a lawsuit earlier this year, I think. In 2024, that one of his songs is a ripoff, essentially, of another song. And his defense, I think he actually brought his guitar into the courtroom, and his defense is that his song, The Shape of You, I'm in love with the shape of you. I mean, if I grab my guitar, I could play it for you. It uses the same 4 chords as almost every other rock song ever written. So my question is, what's the difference between copyrighted material and public domain material? Because I can put something out in the public domain. It can still be copyrighted to me, but it can also serve as a source of inspiration for other people to create their own stuff. Isn't that what's happening here? Isn't AI
but
just
when
being
you put something out into
inspired
Creative
by my
Commons,
work?
when you are putting something into
Not
Creative Commons, that's
No,
different than the public domain.
Not Creative Commons. Just look, what my music, all right? I have copyrighted songs.
Yes.
They are on YouTube.
That doesn't mean that that's public domain.
That doesn't mean they're public domain.
Look at them, they can hear them, they could even, play them for their friends. But it's not public domain.
So maybe that's the wrong term. Let's just use public. I'm putting them out in the public. Anybody can download them. Anybody can listen to them over and over and over again and write their own song or try and copy me exactly. Anyone can do that. I can't stop them.
Only if they cover you exactly. If they copy you exactly, yes, then that's breaking copyright.
That's breaking copyright.
So Is the answer here that AI simply needs to ensure that it is different enough from the
No,
original?
we're conflating questions. I think the real question is if the company who is making this AI is training it on copyrighted material, they needed to have gotten a license from the holder of the copyright to get permission to do that. So
Right.
it's not what gets created by the machine. It's the companies using things it does not have the right to use.
Right. The other is actually a little simpler because it being just slightly off, we actually can look at the laws on where with the Weird Al Yankovic, where they created a parody law. So if it's parodied enough, that's what protects Saturday Night Live. That is what protects stuff where they can change it slightly. But that isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about you have stolen people's information. You have trained a model that is making you money and that is in fact
But
making.
hold on. The way you just said that, Tamara, we have stolen people's.
Yeah.
What did they steal?
Yes. They stole
all their articles.
They took their articles to train this medium, to train this
Articles
AI.
that were published on the internet.
But they don't.
Doesn't matter. You don't lose copyright just because somebody did it.
But I grabbed a couple of articles for this discussion tonight. I put them into a Google Doc for us.
You
Am I
didn't publish
breaking
the Google
copyright?
Doc.
You didn't publish the Google Doc, and you didn't put.
I could.
You didn't claim
No, actually,
that
you know
as
what?
your own.
I
But
actually
here's the
did.
thing: there's
It
no
is published,
attribution to
Tamara.
copyrighted. No, but here's the thing: they're taking copyrighted work, and they're using it to train AI with no attribution, no credit.
Oh, no, I
and
disagree.
A break.
I disagree. If Van Gogh, right? Let's see. Oh, here's the Van Gogh. Hold on a second. So here's the Van Gogh that we just told it to create. A family sitting by the pool in the style of, I don't know Van Gogh enough to know if that's a good Van Gogh. But the way that it knew to create this is because his style is attributed to his name. It's only because his style is attributed to his name.
But they didn't. Okay, is Van Gogh's work still copyrighted? That's the first question. I don't know when he died.
Let's pretend like it is. Let's pretend like it is.
But if it was right now, if it was in the style of Lois Richter, okay, I have not given the copyright permission to anyone else to take my stuff and do anything with it.
What are they doing with it? They're looking at it.
They're training their model. No, they're doing more than.
They have a model that's
training their model on it. They're not just looking at it.
Yes,
they're analyzing it. They're taking it apart. They're figuring out which strokes are.
Which is exactly what I would do if I were an art student looking at your work. That's how I would learn from you. I would study your art and learn from you and be inspired by you.
But
that's
there's a
not
difference.
Breaking copyright. That's learning and being inspired. The difference here is that it's a computer doing it or a large language model, not a human being.
No, that's not the difference. The difference is that you don't have permission to mess with that stuff. We're talking about texts here mostly.
No, but who's messing with anything? If I am an art student, I'm going to
if you are the owner of the AI, if you are the owner, if you're the company or
I think it's not. It really is a lot more to do with I can speak to it from why my friends are upset. And I say this as someone who really sits in the middle of this because I love AI and I completely understand this argument. And I don't know the answer to solve this problem. But the truth is, like, I have people who are looking up their work, their art in animation has been used without them. That work would have to be relicensed from the studio to use it after a certain amount of time. So it's training a model utilizing art from not Van Gogh, from lots of different people, from thousands and thousands of documents of people who did not give their permission. And that's where the rub is. That's where people are like, it's not some art student who's going, wow, I really like, Tamara's artistic ability. They're not learning anything from my artistic ability, but I want to learn that. it's actually generating a system. It's training a system that is not only not getting permission to use that system, but also is creating the tools that are putting these artists who are not getting credit or getting financial compensation. They are creating the tools that are putting them out of jobs. And that's where the problem is in this and why people are so upset about it.
So here's the Van Gogh that AI created and an original Van Gogh. It looks inspired. It looks inspired. I don't.
David, the question isn't, would you think that that was a Van Gogh? All of Van Gogh's works is known, and nobody has done that. We know that. But the point is that in order for that to create something in the style of, you know absolutely that the people who made that AI looked at and trained on and used all those pictures, and assuming that they were still in copyright, they didn't get permission.
Just like an art student would.
No. Okay. No, it's not the same thing. You're getting, yeah.
I'm not.
You're
I'm,
just being
other than
obstinate.
scale. Other than scale, I'm having a difficult time seeing the difference. An art student studies in excruciating detail the works
Right.
of a number of different artists, and then is inspired by them, creates new work. Is that not what AI is doing? Is it not
Okay, so-
studying in excruciating detail the works of other artists and then creating new work?
Let's talk about words instead of pictures. That'll be easier for you to understand, I think. So
You see what she just did there? She just,
I did.
yeah.
Smooth.
David, you don't understand.
well, no, I mean,
Go ahead.
I think it's easier to understand when we're talking about text. Okay. So if you take and you look at somebody's book, and then you go and you create something similar to that in the style of whatever, some of the people who are making the AI say this is fair use. It's fair use, and fair use is fine. But fair use is when you are an educator and you're using a portion of that book or film or whatever to talk about something in your studies. So you're coming to the students and you're saying, now in this book, this is how they handle the description of dawn, and in this book they describe it this way, and you're using them as examples. That's fair use.
No, I have
that's
to disagree.
not
That's not fair
taking the
use.
entire thing. Pardon?
I disagree.
I
That's
think
not.
I think one of the issues, though, with what Lois is saying is that who determines how much of that content that a teacher could use is fair use?
A teacher can
Because
use as much as they want. That's not fair use.
As long as
So-
it's in
so-
part of their lesson plan, they can use as much as
Yeah,
they want,
they
but
could-
it
they
has
could-
to be written in your lesson plan.
But the issue becomes, if there is no limitation in terms of a teacher using it, what's the difference between the AI using it? Because
They're
AI
commercial. They're not a
the-
teacher.
I
the
think some of it
AI
has to do with how
some of
computers
it,
think.
some of it, someone would argue that the AI is a teacher, that maybe it's the ultimate teacher. I don't know, but I think the idea of saying that in one context, it's appropriate for a teacher to be able to use someone else's work and to say that it's fair use, you could make the argument that the AI is a teacher in a sense, and that it's certainly applicable to use it in that way.
So
But
If-
computers
if-
don't
if-
think
if-
that way.
fair use, that is already been legislated. It's already been through the courts. It's been written down. What is fair use? What is not fair
Yeah,
use?
It's pretty.
I mean, it's pretty clear what that term means. Now, what is not clear is if the argument that should be applied to other things other than teachers, if that would make
Lois,
the law change.
Sorry, hold on. Fair use has nothing to do with teachers. Fair
Yes,
use,
it does.
no, fair
Education.
use. Fair use says that you can use for satire, for commentary, for education.
You're right.
There are lots
right.
of different applications of fair use. As an educator, there are no limitations that I know of, none whatsoever, on how much of any person's content I can use in the teaching of my students. If I wanted to offer a 100-year class on the works of Beethoven, I could spend 100 years using every single piece that Beethoven's ever written to teach a class. The only difference is that AI can do that in what I can do in 100 years, AI can do in 100 seconds.
So I think one of the issues is how computers think versus how people think. So I think you're right. When you look at an artist and an art student and they're looking at art, they're looking at a piece of it. But computers don't actually think that. So when you say to the computer in the style of Van Gogh, it is also thinking not in the style of all of these other things. So it in order to be more complex than just the major artists, it has had to train on all different artists. Otherwise, they would just be putting just Van Gogh in and just the people that we know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I don't know enough about how this works to say this with a certainty, but I'm going to pretend like I do and say it with certainty anyway. And I'm going to suggest that you're giving AI far too much credit. That my gut is that what AI does is it doesn't even know it's a picture. It sees a bunch of pixels, and it understands the arrangement of those pixels and the density of those pixels and the yada, yada, yada. And then it learns that in the style of X, Y, and Z means that the pixels go in this way and not in that way. It doesn't know Van Gogh. It doesn't know Disney. It doesn't know any of that. It doesn't know anything. All it does is vomit back to the best of its ability what we've taught it. And now I think it's a fair argument to say it's not original, it's not producing anything original, and therefore it's a terrible art student. But I'm not convinced that that's stealing. Let me just throw in here that Gary asks, what would fair compensation be for these artists? Let's come back to that. But I also just want to say, excuse me, I just want to say hello real quick to Alex Knight and Brediverse. Clive Kitchener asks, Lois, are you suggesting that AI is a forgery of the originals? Is it stealing the original and then a forgery?
I'm not talking about the outcome of what you get.
You're talking about the
when you ask it. I'm talking about the use of the material by the company or person that's doing the training of the AI.
Okay.
And all of this discussion that we're having, it's all going to come out like all copyright things do to lawsuits.
Right.
Yeah.
And we won't know the answer to our questions until those lawsuits are settled.
Yeah.
And I think the precise reason they didn't this is an ask for forgiveness and not permission situation. It's going to be far less money for a major corporation to pay a class action lawsuit of 16 cents per person than it is for them to go and get to license ahead of time. The people who are licensing ahead of time are very small companies. They are small companies. They are seeking licenses because they don't have the buffer that a class action lawsuit will give them. So I don't think it was
some
ever
people are
discussed.
doing that though. Some people are asking. Yeah.
By the way, if they were to try and license some of this, guess who would still be screwed in the end? Excuse me, the artists, because the artists don't own all of their own work.
Absolutely.
Right. The work is owned by the studios and the producers and the this and the that, and the distributors. I mean, so I'm not. So Tamra.
And look, I license stuff. I have to license stuff as a producer.
Right.
So
what would fair compensation be then? What would fair compensation look like?
We don't know.
We don't know because I don't think there's been a case in any major technology shift like we are seeing now, whether that was Internet 1.0, lots of stuff ended up on the internet that people did not give permission to put up there. And then they were kind of like, there's nothing we can do. It's out there now. So I think that this is one of those problems that in hindsight, no one was going to ask for copyright permission because it was, they were training it based on like small models, right? So I think that this is something that doesn't have an answer, but we can see a pattern in any time there has been a major technological shift where we go into this gray area of what's okay and what's not okay. And so the people who are upset that they're looking in a database and they can see that their work has been used are upset, and they should be upset. What would I say to them? I'm so sorry, but there's probably nothing you can do. There may be a class action lawsuit where you will literally get 16 cents.
I'd be
maybe
flattered.
But I think people do have a right to be upset about it, and I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. Maybe
I'm just naive. I'd be flattered.
So here's a
Not upset.
related question. Let's say that I'm a writer and I've written a book and I think it's being used to train an AI. How do I know? I can't know because
you can look it up. Actually, you can look it up. Yeah, you can.
They publish what they train on.
Yes, you can look it up in LibGen. There are lots of.
What's that?
I'm gonna try to give you
LibGen.
Yep, they've created a database of the novels that were used to train Meta.
Library Genesis.
And so that's where a lot of people are seeing they're checking the work that they've written. And I've had several people like, every single book I have published was trained by this. Every single article that I've published has been in there. So, it's not everything, but there's the similar things for artists where artists are looking up their work and they're like, I found, this thing that I did that has been used to train AI. Now, part of the reason they're upset isn't about money. Part of the reason they're upset is that these are the same tools that are being used to eliminate their jobs. And so that's part of the reason that people are upset. They're like, you stole my work. You didn't pay me for it. I'm not getting credit for it. And this tool is being used by corporations to eliminate my work. So it is in direct competition with me. That's why people are upset. They should be upset. I don't know the answer to solve that problem. There's no, it's done. Like, we're not putting this back in the bottle. At some point they'll have a class action lawsuit and people will make 16 cents. And you're right, the artists won't, because the people who get that 16 cents is Disney or whoever hired them. So it is, but I think people have a right to be upset about it. I don't think there's an answer, but I think that they have a right to be upset.
So LibGen, let me just, I hope this is correct. This is what you're talking about, that they're involved with Meta.
Right.
And a week ago, this was, or it was updated today, but Meta apparently, LibGen is pirated books apparently.
Right.
And Meta used it in order to train its AI programs. And so here we go. On Thursday, The Atlantic published a searchable database of over 7.5 million books and 81 million research papers. This data set, called Library Gen, or LibGen for short, is full of pirated material which has been used to develop AI systems by the tech giant Meta. So I don't know that that the others use this also, but I'm
no,
sure
but I think we're gonna find, like, everybody used something, right?
Yeah.
So that now this is what we're finding is tools that are allowing people to search their work. And I mean, on my feed I have two different groups. I have academia, and they're up in arms. They're looking at their work, and it's their doctoral thesis and things that is theirs. They're finding their work, and they're not finding it flattering. They're finding it like heartbreaking.
So
the other side that I work in is animation, and they are also able to look up things, and they're seeing that their work has been used. So that's why people are upset.
Good news. I have written a book, and it's not in here.
Congratulations.
And I'm going to say,
how sad. You didn't get to train AI.
I'm a little depressed. That's a little depressing to me. I want to be part of the club.
You want to have your work stolen? David,
No, I
that's
want
ridiculous.
other people to be inspired by it. I want them to use it. I want them to quote it. I want them to learn from it. I want them to create their own work based on my work. Yes, I want
Dear
all of
Meta,
that.
here's David Paskin's work, life's work. Please use this to train your AI.
Look, I don't make a
So,
living based on my work.
Right.
yeah,
I acknowledge I'm not the norm here. But
yeah. And you were talking about public domain versus copyright at
Right.
some point
what I
here when
meant
we
to
were
say, though,
talking.
just
And
to be clear, Lois, what I meant, the
Mhm.
distinction I meant to make was something that's in the public versus
Right.
right.
something that's
Okay.
copyright. That's
So
what I meant.
if you write a book and you publish it, you send it to a publisher, whether it's going to be published digitally or in paper, it's okay. It's a book. But if you create a website, like you go to my website and there I have written some description about some bird or other, that's not it could be copyrighted if I wanted to do that, but it's not something that I would think needed copywriting or needed protection because I do like the fact that people are looking at my stuff and they're enjoying my thoughts and things like that. And it's different.
Yes, and so I happen to be on your website right now. Um, at the bottom of a lot of websites, in fact, at the bottom
Yep.
of most of mine, it says there's copyright information that this
Mhm.
website is copyright.
And those videos that I made are in fact copyrighted because I created those videos. They're on YouTube.
And
It's
so
not
and so
it's
your
not
so
something
your
that you're
issue, so you would take issue with a person watching every video that you
no,
created over wait
no.
over and over and over again and learning your style, learning how you crafted the videos and then creating their own set of videos inspired and based on your work. That would bother you.
I didn't say that.
But you're saying that you're not okay if
There's
AI does that.
copyright is the right to copy, the right to
Right.
take the work and make a derivative from it, the right to take the work and use it for your own commercial purposes.
So the issue is commercial use.
I think that's probably one of them. Yeah.
Okay. Tony, you want to jump in here with anything?
I'm struggling with this because I I see, and I'll just say I am an AI fanboy. Um, I see this as an opportunity for learning and growing and pulling along people who don't have access. You know, when I grew up, um, my parents sacrificed to get a set of World Book encyclopedias in the house. And it was a sacrifice for them to do that. But there were seven of us that were in school. And, you know, access to the library and all of that kind of stuff was not a big thing. So we were able to learn from having access to that in the house. And I look at AI as an opportunity for people who are disadvantaged in digital deserts as a way to sort of make the mainstream. And I hear all of the conversation that we've had, but I kind of lean toward the idea of people being inspired by the artwork, by the written word. And I think that there are going to be people who are going to profit and abuse the system. But I think there is more opportunity for people who don't have access to be brought up, to be pulled up, to sort of get on a level playing field. Um, and I guess one of my passions is the fact that I know from personal experience that there are people that live in digital deserts that they don't have access. But you got a phone, you got the Chat GPT app on there, you
It's the
got
great
Gemini
democratizer.
on your
Yeah.
phone. Everybody almost has a phone.
It's the great democratizer.
And
Well, and
so
I
you get an opportunity. I think that everything that everybody said is great, but when you weigh things, and this just, and I'm speaking for me, when you weigh things, it is more help for those who need it than those who will, continue to rake in wealth because of it. And so I kind of want it to learn as much as it can to be a resource, not a replacement for people, but a resource that can continue to inspire people to be their better selves.
Tamara, I'm going to give you the last word.
I think the copyright offers agrees with you once things are in there. So we're talking about two separate things. Once things are in there, they're already discussing. If you create something with AI, then it is copyrightable to you in many ways. So I think we are talking about two different things. And I do think that there's not going to be very much for anybody whose work has been affected or used to train AI. There's going to be very little recourse. I think, when they do deal with courts, it's going to be no money or nothing or very little. So that's a ship that's already sailed, unfortunately. But and I agree with you, Tony. I love AI. I love what the possibilities are of it. And right now we're kind of stuck in this mire of kind of all the negative stuff that is really, it is destroying lives. It is changing people's work. It is making it so that, their work that they can't put on their resume because someone else can represent it as their own. Like there's some definite things that are really not helpful with it. But I also think that this is the ship that sailed. And unfortunately, that's going to be the thing that we grapple with. Is like, where do we go next? And you're right, it is a unifier. And for my benefit, for my taste, I want it to use as much as possible because that's how we get representation in these models.
That's
If we
another really
only
good point.
use
Yep.
things that are famous and published, we're going
That's
to
right.
have a lot of old white men in there, and that is not what I want generative AI to be trained on. So
That's a
for my taste, I
really
want
good
it trained
point.
on anything and
Yeah.
everything.
That's an excellent point. You're right. That what did they say? Garbage in, garbage out, right? The only AI can only give us what it's trained on. And so if we don't train it on the largest data set possible, the most diverse data set possible, then yeah, we're only going to get back what we put into it. It's an excellent point.
And is it being trained on people's posts and rants and false information that is being put out? We
Well,
don't know what these AIs are being trained on was one of the
Well,
things that was.
a lot of places they have disclosures and they'll tell you. So you need to look at whatever the platforms that you're using are. You need to look at those and see what their policies are. As usual, there's no easy answer to any of this. I love the fact that it was kind of 2-on-2 tonight. I think Tony and I'm pretty sure we won. I'll ask AI later, but
Oh, you're
we'll
two. You're two.
But
And we'll have to wait for the courts. So we should revisit this in a couple
yeah,
years
yeah, we'll
once
need
we
to.
have court decisions.
And by the way, and you know what, Lois? And then we'll have to revisit it again because in 2 years, this technology won't be the same.
That's
And
right.
it'll be learning differently. But in the meantime, let me just say, Ryan Clark, I agree. I have a hard time understanding the difference in me reading books in the library or asking AI to help me understand a topic that AI read in all those books for me. Gary Lund, Tony hits it out of the park. I'm really thankful to all of you who are watching online. Guy, so good to see you. Gary, Brediverse, Alex Knight, good to see you here. Clive, thank you all for being here and for sharing your input. And Tamra and Lois and Tony, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I appreciate it so much. Next week, we'll be back with another episode. But for night, have a lovely night, everyone. Bye-bye.